DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Good mix.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And we are back. We are back with some appetizers for you. And I'm talking about UFC 315, Muhammad versus Della Maddalena. And this is May 10th, 2025. So this Saturday coming up should be 10 Eastern, 9 Central time, so the standard pay-per-view time at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And the most surprising thing, or most surprising note, or surprising fact about this is the first time they've been back to the Bell Center in like 10 years. So in Canada, in 10 years, that's surprising. You'd think they'd have a lot of ravenous fans. You got quite a few uh, champions that like speak French and stuff. They're from like Africa or they're from France, and obviously people in Canada speak French and Canadians as well. So that's just surprising. I would have thought Canada, the people in Montreal, there'd been a huge following for the UFC and mixed martial arts. So the fact that they hadn't been back in 10 years was really surprising to me. But anyways, let's go over this card a little bit, and then we'll get into the main card. Just for the undercard, this is really kind of a bad card for any of the prelims, early prelims, or just your standard prelims. There's not really a good main event on either the early or the standard prelims. Like the only real notable names on the card is light heavyweight Ian Kutalabe is like the second fight on the regular prelims or standard prelims, and then you have a former women's title contender in Jessica Andrade is like the co-main event on the standard preliminary cards. But yeah, so that right there kind of hurts this card, in my opinion. Just not a lot to get excited for, even just on the preliminary card. And then when you kind of get into the main card here, I mean, the only thing that really makes this card like notable at all, and I mean, it should be really notable, but notable at all is just like the two title fights. I mean, everything else I kind of yawn at, even though last card, UFC 314, was a great card, and it literally didn't have like a championship being defended on that card. It was just for a vacant title uh, with Alexander Volkanovski getting his title back. But there really literally wasn't two title. There wasn't an actual title fight on the card. It was just for a vacant title, and there was only one fight in that. And that card ended up being amazing. Patty Pimblin with the impressive showing, and just the whole card was really good, surprisingly, even though it was like kind of billing up as kind of kind of like almost like a fight night worthy card. But this card almost feels very similar to that. What hurts this card a lot is just the preliminary cards are no good, and then you got some old fighters, some fighters that are on kind of some skids, and then just like Belal Muhammad, not the most exciting champion. Wouldn't say he's a superstar. Balasham Jaco, that's like really the real big name on this card, but she's just ran through like every woman in the flyweight division, that you kind of get these no name uh, contenders, that are contending for a belt, or opponents for it. That like, yeah, she may have a good record through just their last couple fights, and maybe just overall because she's a newer fighter. But when you stack her up against the resume of Valentinenko, it's literally like never heard of this person in comparison. So do they even have a chance? So there's not a lot of star power at the top of this card, and besides just the two title fights, uh, and their opponents definitely aren't like superstars. Kind of, I mean, hurts this card. But if anything, that we kind of learned from this is you need to wait and just see the results, because I mean, this could be a super exciting card just based off of how the fights go, and if there's uh, unexpected finishes or wild finishes and crazy stoppages. It could go a long way in making a card that doesn't, just from a distance, doesn't look all that great. Yeah, it's great. It's got the two title fights on the card, but besides that, you don't get a lot of, there's not a lot of superstar power and draw to this card. But anyways, that's enough of just glossing over kind of the entire card a little bit. Let's get into some of these fights and see if we can kind of change our opinion on that, or if we think we might get some good fights out of some of these five uh, fights on the main card. But anyways, let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And so the first fight on the card is a lightweight bout between Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Pripolak. And this feels kind of like a get back fight for Benoit Saint Denis, because he's kind of on a bit of a bad run, a bad stretch, kind of a losing stretch, not necessarily a streak. It's a two fight losing streak, but what makes it worse than anything is, yeah, okay, he got knocked out by Dustin Poirier back on March 9th, 2024. But I mean, there's a lot of guys that have been knocked out by Dustin Poirier. He's a top contender at his weight class. But then he also got beat so bad by Renato Moicano that it ended up having to be a doctor stoppage, and that was back September 28th, 2024. So just some bad losses, getting knocked out and having to getting beat up so bad that you had to have the fight stopped. Not the greatest look, but he was looking as if he was possibly a contender. Like one more win here, one more win there, because he was on a five-fight winning streak before the KO loss to Dustin Poirier. Probably a win over Dustin Poirier would have gotten him a title shot at this is what light yeah this is lightweight, but wasn't able to pull that off. But in his last five fights, he is 3-2 with the two losses, the two last fights being losses with TKO and knockout. Over his uh, career, he's has 17 fights with 13 wins, three losses, and one no contest. In the 13 wins, he has 4 wins by knockout, 9 wins by submission, 3 losses, and on the 3 losses he has 2 wins by knock two lo- on the 3 losses he has 2 losses by knockout. Never been submitted, because that's really what he is. He's a submission grappler. So he's great at getting the submission, and also good at defending it, and never really putting himself in position to where he can be submitted. And then just one fight gone to decision. So in those 17 fights, they're usually exciting. There's usually going to be a stoppage, whether it's him possibly getting knocked out like he has in the last 2 fights, or he's going to try to get his opponent start off with great crisp striking, and hopefully he can get his opponent on the ropes to where he can get them in a bad position and try to submit them on the ground. But with the and he's still ridiculously young. I thought Benoit Saint Denis was up in his like mid 30s, but he's still not even 30 years old. He's 29 years old, because I was about to, on the God of War here, I was about to go to the possibility that with his age, maybe his chin is kind of starting to go, just going off of those last 2 fights. But man, it'd be really hard to say that necessarily, just because up until now, up until this rough stretch, hadn't really had an issue with his chin or getting knocked out or taking a lot of damage in fights. And being only 29 years old, I should say that that's a fighter that's in their prime. But yeah, he's a veteran and looking to get back on track. And that really kind of seems like what this is, this bout, the curtain jerker for the main event versus Kyle Pre-Polek, who is 35 years old, is an older fighter, and he's from Ontario, Canada. And then Benoit Saint Denis is like what, from France, and uh, can speak French. So, but both Benoit Saint Denis and Kyle Pollock probably both getting a lot of applause here. But why I was saying that that Pollock may be like a get back fight for Benoit Saint Denis is because he hasn't fought in the UFC since 2019. So September 14, 2019, he fought Austin Hubbard. So he's been just trying to find fights in his last 5 fights where he is 4-1, and he's on a 3 fight winning streak in what Prospect FC and BTC organizations that you've probably hardly ever heard of, but just kind of your uh, road show, sideshow type of MMA companies. So he hasn't been fighting real notable competition. So you definitely see, even though he has gotten 3 straight TKOs or knockouts in his last fight, it's fighters that are probably unheard of. So it's the talent pool that he's fought since coming out of the UFC isn't quite as good, and he was never really his 2 fight opportunity in the UFC kind of was never good, never showed anything in the UFC. So this feels like a fight that's kind of set up for uh, Benoit Saint Denis to get back on track, and he's this Kyle Bree Pollock is his it's just kind of like a pure martial artist. He can beat you on any ways. Probably prefer to try to get the knockout standing up because he is a good kickboxer, but he can submit you as well. But in his last 5 fights, he is 4-1. But those are all fights that are outside of the UFC. And in his 26 fights, he has 18 wins, 8 losses. In the 18 wins, he has 10 wins by knockout. So, depending on, I guess, the level of competition, he can put you out, can knock you out. Has the power. He can do it if he gets you in a bad enough situation or he catches you with some undefended strikes. He can knock you out. That's the main way that he's beaten people. And then he's has 4 wins by submission, 4 wins by decision. And then talking about those knockouts in his 8 losses, he's never been knocked out. So he's got some stone hands, but got a bit of a stone chin and jaw as well. And then in the 8 losses, does have 2 losses by submission and six losses by decision. So those 2 losses by submissions are kind of what I highlight here because Benoit Saint Denis is like a submission grappler, and he likes to beat people with uh, arm triangle chokes and rear naked chokes, and the two submission losses on Kyle Pre-Polek's uh, record are from arm triangles and rear naked chokes. So in this bout between lightweight Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Pre-Polek, I'm going with Benoit Saint Denis to get back on track, and he's just the talent. The talent levels are just kind of uncomparable here, and Benoit Saint Denis is even younger and younger, more talented, has a better resume in the UFC. So this kind of feels like a gimme bout to me. But I think Kyle Polak is also coming in this fight on short notice, only like 2 weeks, and he's like one of the biggest betting underdogs in this fight. But in this bout between Benoit Saint Denis versus Kyle Polak, I'm going with Benoit Saint Denis, and I think he's going to get the submission to get back on track. And I think he's going to get that submission probably in the second round. I think it's going to be some kind of choke. I'm going to go ahead and say I think it's going to be a rear naked choke. He's going to get it started off probably with some of his striking, and he'll get Pollock in a bad situation on the ground where maybe trying to defend himself from some ground and pound gives up his back, and Benoit St. Vince is going to jump on a rear naked choke and choke him out, put him out in probably maybe the second round. All right. Now then, on to the second fight on the main card. We have a women's flyweight bout between Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva. And so this is Alexa Grasso after having her trilogy fights and just a trilogy fight series with Valentina Shevchenko. So this is her first fight back, and she's like still the number one contender for the flyweight championship. So I would just kind of assume an impressive performance, an impressive finish, a submission or a knockout in this fight would maybe put her right back in line for the fourth fight, but making a quad trilogy possibly with Valentina Shevchenko, which I don't know how excited people would get for that, but when you're the best contender and the only one that's has a shot and shown that they can beat Valentina Shevchenko, I think that's your uh, rightful spot in the UFC and in the rankings. But in her last five fights, uh, she is she is let's see, she's 3-3, 1-1 with the one there being a draw against Valentina Shevchenko, a split draw. So we talked about she got the face crank over Valentina Shevchenko to win the belt with the submission, and then went split draw in the rematch with Valentina Shevchenko. I think one of the judges gave it to Shevchenko, but still the other two called it a draw. And then Valentina Shevchenko basically just dominated her on the ground in the rematch. But I would say predominantly uh, Alexa Grasso is more of a striker and likes to strike it out and try and seems to go the distance quite a bit, even though she's a striker. Doesn't have too much knockout potential, but she can, and she but definitely likes to try to bring her opponents into deep water and see if they can go the distance with her. And she's kind of just another fighter that's always been a mixed martial, always kind of been training mixed martial artists. So that's kind of her style. Does have good Brazilian jiu-jitsu game. Her coach being Diego Lopez, but man, her for her to get back on track is very interesting to see how this fight goes and where it ends up placing her after this bout. But we mentioned that she's 3-1-1 in her last three fights, and her last three fights are all Valentina Shevchenko, either winning the belt or defending the belt or losing the belt. So for her to finally, it's been a while since Alexa Grasso hasn't been in a 5 round fight. So hopefully, Patricio Pitbull, kind of like Patricio Pitbull on the last per view. Hopefully, she doesn't start slow, thinking that she can start to come on in the third, fourth, and fifth round, because there will be no third, fourth, or fifth. Well, there'll be no fourth or fifth round in this fight. So she'll have to start a little faster and definitely have an impressive performance to possibly get back in title contention, even though she is the number one flyweight at the moment. But in her 21 fights, she has 16 wins and 4 losses. In the 16 wins, she has 4 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, and 10 wins by decision. So she can go the distance. That's definitely usually the path that she goes. Tries to find a weakness of her opponent, usually trying to start out with the striking and just kind of good at keeping her distance. And if she gets you in a bad position on the ground, she can submit you as well. It doesn't have to just be ground and pound. She does have submissions, and beating one of the greatest women's flyweights of all time with face crank is pretty impressive thing to have on your resume. And then in her 4 losses, she's never been knocked out, so it shows that she has a good chin and is a good striker and good at defending strikes, and just is is tough. But in her, but she has been submitted once and lost three by decision, and then one draw. So that's exciting. That's exciting because uh, really an impressive performance from either her or Natalia Silva could maybe possibly lead to a title shot because Natalia Silva, she's fighting the number one flyweight, but herself is only number 13 or number five. So this could really boost her. This could maybe have her still Alexa Grasso's number one, or definitely move her up a spot or two. But she's been impressive. She's on, I think, a 17 fight win streak, I think. No, she's on a 12 fight win streak, and she is 6-0 in the UFC. So pretty impressive. And it hasn't all just kind of like Alexa Grasso. It hasn't all been decisions. It's mostly stoppages. Well, I guess it's a good mixture actually of knockouts, submissions, and decisions. And so she is 5-0 in her last five fights, obviously. But there's a couple TKOs with pretty impressive uh, knockouts along the line with some spinning back fist and punches and head kicks. So that's impressive performances by her. Some impressive uh, showings with spins and uh, kicks to get some knockouts in some fights. But she's had 24 fights with 18 wins and five losses and then one draw. In her 18 wins, she has 5 wins by knockout, 7 wins by submission, and 5 wins by decision, and then 1 win by disqualification. So as you can see, she can get the knockout, she can get the submission, more likely to get the submission, even though her last two finishes came off those spinning back fist and head kicks and punches. So she's shown an improvement just within her last five fights of what she can do in the striking game. And then 5 decisions and then one disqualification, which that was, let's see, that's a while back. Let's see where that disqualification win came from. Yeah, illegal elbow strike. So that must have been some 12-6 elbows or some elbow shots to the back of the head, I imagine. And then in the 5 losses, only been knocked out once, been submitted twice, and 2 fights gone to decision, and then just the one draw. So she's definitely an up and coming fighter, still young, just kind of coming into her prime at 28 years old. But is this a step up in competition? I can't wouldn't want to call Alexa Grasso like a gatekeeper or a stepping stone or a jag because I mean she was literally in trilogy fight series with Valentina Shevchenko, and up until now that's all she's been fighting for is championship bouts to either try to fight for the title or defend the title, three 5 round fights in a row. So this seems like a step up in competition to Natalia Silva. So in this women's flyweight bout between Alexa Grasso versus Natalia Silva, I think Alexa Grasso is going to win this, and I don't think she's going to do it impressively enough to be able to state the claim of that I'm the next title contender. Like it's like where's this quadrilogy match? Where's this fourth fight going to happen? But I do think that she's going to be able to do just enough in the standing and just enough on the ground to edge out Natalia Grasso, just because of that championship swagger and and experience that Alexa Grasso has. I think that will give her enough to show her to be able to pull Natalia Silva into deep waters and take this fight to a decision, a unanimous decision. Because if Alexa Grasso is going to win, that's usually how it goes. But I don't think a unanimous decision victory over Natalia Silva is enough to put her right back in position to fight for the belt to be the next title contender for the women's flyweight championship, Valentina Shevchenko. All right, now then, on to the third fight on the card. We have featherweights. So this is featherweights. Jose Aldo versus Aman Zahibi. And what's so weird about this fight is that this was originally a bantamweight bout. So they were supposed to be they're supposed to make 135, so that means they could be a pound over at 136. And not just one of them, not just Aldo, who's missed weight, has a history of missing weight 2 or 3 times in his career. Not just Aldo almost was 10 pounds over, but Zahibi was almost 10 pounds over as well. Aldo at 143 and Zahibi at 142. Like that is so weird for both fighters to be like almost 10 pounds over. I wonder if like sometime in the week where they were not feeling real great and thought that they probably weren't going to be able to make weight, but maybe one or the other like called each other and was like, look, can we just kind of both get in the same weight range? Maybe not 135, but maybe if we both kind of weigh around 145, that we can just bump it up to a featherweight bout. Because that's just so weird that both of them were overweight, but it was almost, they were almost exactly the same poundage overweight. So that's just odd to me. And another thing that's just kind of odd to me is, man, like, how is Jose Aldo? Like, I mean, it feels like he's been around for like 100 years. Like, how has he not been taken out to pasture already? And he is older too, but still is shown that he can be what a top 10 fighter at his position. I see, yeah, he's a number 11 ranked bantamweight. Not sure what his ranking would be at at featherweight, which is where this fight has been. And he hasn't fought at featherweight since 2019. But yeah, it just feels surprising that he hasn't been taken out to pasture. Maybe a devastating loss in this fight could maybe lead to it. Like I love Jose Aldo, a legend, Hall of Famer, but man, seeing him on main cards like the third, the what the third fight on a numbered card at this point in his career and in this generation, just shows you the kind of the lack of talent and superstar vigor that the UFC currently has. That you're having to will fighters out of the retirement home, out of nursing homes to fight and give your card a little bit more name notoriety. But we have Jose Aldo, who's predominantly a striker, but also has great Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but definitely would prefer the striking game. And and seeing that he's on this card, I was thinking that he was maybe had been a little more impressive in his last 5 fights, but he's had some losses mixed in there, even though one of them's to the champion, and then Mariano Batista was his last fight that he lost, but he is 3-2. Yeah, no, he's 3-2 in his last 5 fights, and in his last 3 fights, he's 1-2 with losses to Merab Dashvili, which was a unanimous decision loss back on August 20th, 2022, so a while back, but still, and Merab Dashvili shown that he's such an animal and beast on the ground and so dominant and that he's the champion, so that you really don't look at that as too bad of a loss. And then his most recent fight, UFC 307, October 5th, 2024. So that wasn't all that long ago. Just lost a split decision to Mariano Batiste. But I can't recall these just all these fights where he just wins these fights, like his last six fights have been all the method, the outcomes of them have all been like unanimous decision or one split decision, regardless of win or loss. I just can't say that those are like overly exciting fights. But 40, he's had 41 fights in his career with 32 wins and nine losses. In the 32 wins, 17 have been by knockout, even though he's a great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu artist with the black belt and all that. He's still only, which is so crazy with the 41 fights that he has, only had one submission victory in his entire career, and then has 14 wins by decision. So it's either going to uh, be, go knockout or submission or decision if Jose Aldo is going to end up winning this fight. And in his nine losses, he's only been knocked out four times uh, and submitted once. So it shows that even though he doesn't submit people a lot, he has a great submission game. And then just four losses by decision. And man, it's wild because a lot of people thought his chin was just like completely gone, like that Conor McGregor uh, completely took his chin back in the December 12th, 2015. So 10 years ago, people thought Jose Aldo's chin was gone. And then in 2017, he was knocked out, TKO knockouts, two in a row by Max Holloway. And then it just seemed like from there, you thought back in 2017, Jose Aldo would be retired. But no, he came back from all that and hasn't lost a fight by TKO or KO since July, since I guess that'd be December 2nd, 2017 is when it last happened. And then he started a winning record and just all these quite a few fights by way of decision, but he had some TKO victories in there too, with starting off with Jeremy Stevens, TKO punches July 28, 2018, and just he's him himself is he's lost. It's just been by decision mostly. Was knocked out. He was TKO finished by Peter Yan back at UFC 251, July 12th, 2020. But besides that, uh, it looks like his chin's just fine. But people were talking about and thinking that it was gone. So I see if Jose Aldo is going to lose a fight, it's probably going to be by decision now. And his opponent, Aman Zahibi, is not a young fighter either. We were talking about Jose Aldo being 38 years old. Zahibi is 37 himself, but I would say is maybe a brighter prospect. It's harder to call a UFC fighter a prospect when they're when they're 37 years old, and you say the fighter that they're fighting that has like 41 fights and is a year older, is it's time for them to go out to pasture and retire. But then you're looking at Amin Zahibi as has potential and has only fought in 14 fights in his career, but actually is on a bit of a winning streak. It's just like completely different stances and avenues that you see both of these fighters are on, because it looks like one maybe still has a chance to make something as of their mixed martial arts career, and then you have one that's already sitting in the Hall of Fame, and people are kind of still scratching their head as to why he's still competing. Maybe it's a money thing, or maybe he just loves to fight. But in Amin Zahibi's last five fights, he is 5-0, and he's on a 5-fight winning streak in the UFC. And two of those five fights were KO punch wins as well. And in his 14 matches, 12 wins and two losses. In the 12 wins, he has 6 wins by knockout. So he has good striking as well. He's a striker. That's predominantly how he would like the fight to go. He'd like to beat his opponent in stand up and try to get a KO punch and punches or 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 just a straight up punch and stiffen his opponent in his. So that's his 12 wins, 6 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission, and 4 wins by decision. And then in his 2 losses, he has been knocked out one time, never submitted. So he's got a bit of a submission game with his 2 submission wins, but also has good submission defense with 0 losses. But going up against Jose Aldo, who's had 41 fights and has only ever won one by submission. I don't think Zahibi is gonna have to worry about getting submitted in this fight. There's probably a good prop bet on that. I imagine if you think Jose Aldo is gonna beat Aman Zahibi by submission, and then he has just 1 loss by decision. And this is kind of a pretty equal fight, other than history and record, and just where Jose Aldo stands on the all-time great list. But man, I don't know. I'm just kind of tired of seeing Jose Aldo fight. I feel that he needs to just kind of go away, and he shouldn't have 2 38, almost 40-year-old fighters fighting on the main card. Like that shows the detriment that to how where the UFC is at this current environment and culture that they're in. That you can have 2 almost 40-year-old fighters both miss weight and bump their fight into a different weight class, but still is the third best fight on the main card. But anyways, in this featherweight bout between Jose Aldo versus Amin Zahibi, I'm just gonna go with Amin Zahibi to just kind of grind out a unanimous decision win over Jose Aldo. I think both of them won a strike, and just kind of depends on who's the crisper striker, who's faster. I mean, you obviously seeing that Jose Aldo and even Amin Zahibi are uh, both both have kind of slowed down in their striking. Jose Aldo's nowhere near to what he was 15 years ago, and Amin Zahibi is just kind of in a different position, different period. Even though they're like the same age, Amin Zahibi is still just in a different period of his UFC or mixed martial arts career than Jose Aldo. Amin Zahibi could still possibly be on the rise, and Jose Aldo is just kind of where he is. He's a gatekeeper, a stepping stone for what's supposed to be this bantamweight division, but maybe it's the featherweight now. So in this featherweight bout between Jose Aldo versus Amin Zahibi, I'm going with Amin Zahibi to win this by decision. All right, now then, on to the co-main event of UFC 315, Muhammad versus Della Maddalena. So that's Belal Muhammad versus Jack Della Maddalena. We have a women's flyweight bout between the champion Valentina Shevchenko versus the challenger Manon Fiorot. So, man, just from the talent pool that must be left in the flyweight division, we were kind of talking like, oh, we just can't give Alexa Grasso and Valentina too many more matchups against each other. I'm thinking people have gotten tired of that, but we pull out Manon Fiorot, someone that maybe just slightly familiar of, but definitely doesn't move the needle when it comes to any type of star power or superstar power. Not even just a star power. The only real superstar on this UFC 315 card would be Valentina Shevchenko, but she's a little bit on the older side. But she's definitely, yeah, she's 37 years old, but she has great, has great wrestling, but also has great Muay Thai and striking as well. And she's definitely like a pure mixed martial artist, a true mixed martial artist, has uh, trained every style that you can think of in the striking game, and then every style you can think of in the grappling game, and that's just such a well-rounded uh, ability and type of fighter. I think that's probably what will end up putting her over Manon Fiorot, who's more of just kind of a strictly a great striker, and kind of like what Valentina Shevchenko did in her last fight against uh, against Alexa Grasso. She just uh, tried it out a little bit on the stand up, but then just started taking her down and holding Alexa Grasso there. I think she had 15 minutes of ground control over Alexa Grasso. So she shows you she can do that, but she can also just choose to use the ground game if she doesn't feel like early in the fight that she's has the edge in the striking game. Maybe that she'll just start doing some takedowns and trying to wear her opponent out and drag them into deep water, and then after they've gotten a little bit tired, she can switch right back to the striking game, and then because she's worn her opponent out, she may have the edge then. So Valentina Shevchenko, a very difficult uh, woman to beat because of such a vast styles and abilities that she has. So we've gone over the Alexa Grasso trilogies that she's fought. So she also hasn't fought since the Alexa Grasso matchup. It'd be so interesting to see like what happens if Alexa Grasso wins and Valentina Shevchenko loses, or Alexa Grasso wins and Alexander Shevchenko wins. Like, do we get a non-title matchup against them, or do we get a fourth title bout against them? So that should be very intriguing. But in Valentina Shevchenko, in her last 5 fights, she is 3-1-1 with the one draw being out of against Alexa Grasso, and she's just on a one fight win streak, which goes back to September 14, 2024, where she uh, won her flyweight championship back uh, versus Alexa Grasso. So in her 29 fights, she has 24 wins and 4 losses and 1 draw. In the 24 wins, she has 8 wins by knockout, 7 wins by decision, 9 wins by 7 wins by submission, 9 wins by decision. And then in the 4 losses, she has 1 loss by knockout, 1 loss by submission, and 2 losses by decision. So not a lot of losses there. And you can see like she's just a true mixed martial artist and can beat you in any way with with the 8 knockouts, the 7 submission, and 9 decisions. So she can go the distance. She can uh, catch you in a bad position on the ground and submit you, or she can knock you out with head kicks or punches, or uh, once getting you uh, on the ropes, she can also finish you with ground and pound. She's just an all-time great women's mixed martial artist, and all-time maybe the best of all time at the women's flyweight division. And so she's fighting what you would call a young up and comer, or a first time title opponent. But saying that, she's 35 years old, so it's not like she's that young of an up and comer. Just more that she's finally getting some notoriety uh, as a top title contender. Like if she doesn't win here, then I'd be surprised if she ever gets another shot at the belt. So a lot to lose here, and a lot to lose from Valistevchenko, possibly losing to kind of an unknown, possibly a lesser known fighter in Manon Fiorot, who's definitely not a star or a superstar, but she's had an impressive run. She's has a 12 fight winning streak, and she's only had 13 fights. So she lost her first fight Leah McCourt split decision, Cage Warrior 94, June 16th, 2018. But since then, she's gone on a run of 12 straight wins, and she is on a 7-fight winning streak in the UFC. So in her last 5 fights, she's her last 5 fights, she's 5-0, obviously, but all 5 of them have been unanimous decisions. But some uh, impressive opponents that she's fought: Myra Bueno Silva, Jennifer Maya, Caitlin Chakugian, Rose Namajunas, former champion. I think Caitlin Chakugian was a former title contender, and then Erin Blanchfield. So an impressive streak and reign there, and over some definitely top contenders in the women's flyweight division. But I would say that she's predominantly a striker. Like, she either wants to try to get the knockout or keep the distance and kind of pick her opponent apart and go decision. In her 13 matches, she has 12 wins with 1 loss. With the 12 wins, has 6 wins by knockout and 6 wins by decision. And then in the 1 loss, just 1 lost by decision. So it's kind of a small sample size, but she's shown that she has a good chin and must have a decent enough ground game, submission defense, because she's definitely going to need it. Uh, Definitely going to need it against Valentina Shevchenko, who's on another level, even though listed off some great names. I don't think hasn't fought anyone with the great wrestling of Valentina Shevchenko yet. So that's where this fight could end up uh, changing uh, her her the path that she's been on recently, with just being so dominant and just seems as if she can't lose since 2018. But definitely a big step up in competition for Manyan Fiorot. But in this women's flyweight bout, between championship bout between Valentina Shevchenko, the champion, versus Manyan Fiorot, the challenger, I'm going with Valentina Shevchenko to win this. I think she's going to get a TKO victory over Manyan Fiorot. And I think how it's going to start out, obviously, every fight starts standing, so we'll get to see a little bit of the striking between the two. But I think Manyan Fiorot is superior in the striking game. So you'll probably see Valentina Shevchenko be the first one to go for a takedown or try to push her up against the cage. But I think she'll maybe do that for the first 3 rounds or so, and that's Manyan Fiorot, who hasn't fought uh, for in a 5-round fight, and since she's been in the UFC, that could be take her into deep water and really test her stamina. And I think after Valentina Shevchenko thinks that she's worn her out a little bit, slowed her down a little bit with having her have to defend herself on the ground, either from submissions or ground and pound. I think Valentina Shevchenko might try it standing up again, and if she can land something to hit Mannion Fiorot on her heels and maybe get her in a bad position on the ground, I think she can finish her with some TKO with some ground and pound. So in this women's flyweight bout between Valentina Shevchenko, the champion, versus Mannion Fiorot, I'm going with Valentina Shevchenko to win this. I think she's going to win by TKO in like the 3rd or 4th round, later in the round, after Mannion Fiorot feels what it's like to be in a championship bout against an all-time great, a legend, a superstar, Hall of Famer like Valentina Shevchenko. All right, now then, on to the main event. We have welterweight championship bout between Belal Muhammad, the champion, versus the challenger, Jack Della Maddalena. And this is your classic striker versus grappler. And you have Jack Della Maddalena, who's arguably, possibly the best boxer in the welterweight division. And then you have Belal Muhammad, who's the champion. And and has beaten other guys who maybe considered were considered the best grapplers in the division, like Gilbert Burns and Sean Brady, uh, and then other great strikers in the division. Leon Edwards, when you go over like his last five fights, just straight killers. I'll just go even back to back to his last six fights. So he's on a six fight winning streak after the no contest eye poke by Leon Edwards, but he got his get back big time by winning the belt. But he is on a six fight winning streak in the UFC. Obviously, he's 5-0 in his last fights, but he's fought and during that run, he's fought Damian Maya, Stephen Thompson, Vincent Lequi, Sean Brady, Gilbert Burns, and Leon Edwards. And we were talking about how a lot of people maybe looked at Leon Edwards as the best striker in the welterweight division. And coming into his fight against Gilbert Burns back on May 6, 2023, people were maybe considering Gilbert Burns the best grappler in division. So he's shown that he can do it all. And then the TKO, most of those fights, all but one of those were decisions. He had just the really impressive win. Looks even more of an impressive win now that we saw how good Sean Brady looked a couple weeks ago with his dominant performance. So he did have TKO punches win over Sean Brady at UFC 280, October 26, 2022, and I think those that all came from just Belal Muhammad wearing Sean Brady down the entire fight and ragdolling him, and finally got him in a bad position on the ground and finished him with a ground and pound. I think during I heard a crazy stat that said like during his reign in the UFC, he's never knocked an opponent down, like has never had a knockdown. Yeah, he's all man, it's a long reign in the UFC. Yeah, sorry about the dead air there. Just counting his how many fights he's had in the UFC. So he's had 19 fights in the UFC. Only one of those fights was 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 won by a knockout. And I guess in those 19 fights, never had actually knocked an opponent down. Must have just strictly beat Sean Brady with the TKOs with ground and pound. So that's a little wild. So if you're maybe some people asking why Bilal Muhammad isn't looked at as a star or superstar, or why more people don't like him, and maybe it's because he doesn't get finishes or impressive stoppages, and he has like almost like a 90% takedown percentage. So that's kind of people don't get excited too much about fighters that are just great wrestlers and great at taking people down if they're not gonna uh, try to beat their opponent to death once they get them down, or try to choke them out or rip one of their appendages off. It's just not super exciting. The main thing with Bilal Muhammad, that every time I see him, I just think of him as like one of my favorite rappers, French Montana. That's who he looks like, especially when he's wearing uh, big sunglasses or he's got like a chain on or something. Man, he just looks just like French Montana to me. So that's the biggest star power he gets from me. But uh, so we're talking about his last six fights, 6-0. Last five fights, 5-0. He's had 28 matches in his career with 24 wins and three losses in the 24 wins. He has five wins by knockout, which is all just most of that's just wrestling someone to death, dragging them into deep water, and then getting some ground and pound and stopping them. Not a lot of that's from just strictly striking and landing one punch knockouts, or spinning back fist or spinning elbows, or head kicks or anything like that. And then what's wild is he's such a great wrestler and such a great grappler and has such a good takedown proficiency that he only has one submission in his 24 wins, and of his fights where he just grinds it out, takes you down, and maybe there's a little bit of laying and praying there, but he wins. He wins, and I guess at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And especially at the end of the day, once you become champion, I mean, that's all that matters. I mean, who cares how you win as long as you keep winning and keep holding on to that belt. But if people ask maybe why he's not that popular or why people don't like him, that's a good reason right there, because he has just one win by submission and then 18 wins by decision. So you can see that some of his fights are probably long and grueling and kind of dragged out, and maybe you could say boring. And then in his three losses, he's only been knocked out once, never been submitted. So obviously he has the great ground game. Doesn't really use it to try to stop people in regards to like submissions, but obviously has a good uh, submission defense. And probably just never gets in a situation where someone's trying to submit him because he's always on top. Belal Muhammad always on top. And then two losses by decision, and the one no contest eye poke that we know about. So it doesn't really lose, but doesn't really win in exciting or impressive fashion. Like probably the most impressive win of his career. Now that we saw uh, how dominant Sean Brady looks 2.5 years later, that would probably be his most impressive win of his career, the TKO ground and pound victory over Sean Brady on October 22nd, 2022 at the 4:47 mark of the second round. Got him a performance of the night, or for me, a submission of the night victory. But yeah, he's the Marab Dashwili of the welterweight division, basically. So we have Bilal Muhammad. He's going up against Jack Della Maddalena, who is from Perth, Western Australia. He's there's a lot of these fighters that had connections to Canada, whether they're from France and speak French, or if they're Canadian. They're one or the other. They're either actual people from France or that spoke French, or they were from Canada and spoke French, or they're just from Canada. But we got two fighters on the main event have no ties really. And so Jack Della Maddalena, boxer, possibly the best boxer. I think people were trying to say that about Leon Edwards before he had the disappointing loss, unimpressive fight and loss to Bilal Muhammad. But now your next opponent, next challenger, they're always the best at whatever uh, whatever it's like the opposite of your fighting style. But supposedly a great boxer coming into this match, and a knockout artist to go along with that. And he is on kind of similar to Manyon, was it Manyon Fiorot, who lost her first fight and then yeah hadn't and then hasn't lost since. So his record's kind of similar. Jack Della Maddalena record's kind of similar to that because he lost his first two fights and then he hasn't lost since. He's won 17 straight fights and has won all eight and 0 in the UFC. And he's obviously 5-0 in his last five fights with some TKO and a couple submissions. TKO over Danny Roberts and submission rear naked choke out of Randy Brown, and then even an impressive knee and elbow KO over Gilbert Burns. So some similar opponents and matchups. Jack Della Maddalena and Bilal Muhammad have. They fought some of the similar guys and done it all in impressive fashion. You got Danny Roberts, Randy Brown, Kevin Holland, Gilbert Burns. Definitely some notable names on here. And so in his 19 matches, he has 17 wins and 2 losses. In the 17 wins, he has 12 wins by knockout. So he's definitely a striker, a knockout artist, has great boxing. And then he has two, but he has also 2 wins by submissions and 3 wins by decision. But predominantly, his uh, clearest path and best path to victory is definitely trying to keep it standing and try to get the knockout or just keep the distance and just be the better striking in the fight. And I definitely could see that happening. Bilal Muhammad said that he's not going to go for a takedown once in this fight. That kind of sounds like Khalil Roundtree against Alex Pereira a couple months back, which turned out not to be the wisest decision. But when Strictly asked that question in pre-fight uh, press conferences, Bilal Muhammad he kind of danced around that question. So I don't believe he's actually going to strictly stand with Jack Della Maddalena for his first title defense. I don't think that would be very wise. So we went over the 12 knockouts, 2 submissions, 3 wins by decision. And then in his 2 losses, he's been one knock has one loss by knockout and one loss by decision. But even over Bilal Muhammad's long career, he hasn't submitted a lot of people, even though he's such a great grappler and so good at taking people down. He doesn't really submit people, but I mean, with just the 5 losses and hasn't the 5 wins by knockout, but only like one of them being in the UFC. I almost don't think Jack Della Maddalena has to worry about that. I think the main thing he has to worry about is just getting taken down and controlled the entire fight. And sadly, may not be the most exciting or the impressive outcome or way this fight goes. But that's how I see this fight probably going. So Bilal Muhammad, he may test Jack Della Maddalena's striking maybe early on, but the second Jack Della Maddalena gets the advantage or is showing that he's getting off better or landing the harder strikes, or hopefully for Bilal Muhammad doesn't get knocked out from any of those first couple strikes that connect. I see Bilal Muhammad going for the takedown. Whether he's probably just pushing Jack Della Maddalena down up against the cage and then trying to pick him up and throw him down. Might hopefully for Jack Della Maddalena's sake, he doesn't get dropped on his head like Leroy Leroy um, Leon Edwards. Uh, but for just strictly going in for like takedowns, like in open cage area, that's not really how Bilal Muhammad does it. He likes to maybe just come in, fake with some half-hearted punches, and then kind of push you up against the cage and take you down. So Jack Della Maddalena, if he's gonna have any chance at winning this, probably his best chance is probably staying, keeping his back off the cage and trying to get Bilal Muhammad to be the one that's backing up and on his toes and because it'd be hard for him to uh, go in for takedowns and shoot in on him when if he's backing up due to Jack Della Maddalena's superior striking. But in this welterweight championship bout between Bilal Muhammad, the champion, versus Jack Della Maddalena, the challenger, I'm going with Bilal Muhammad, the champion, to retain his belt. Might not be the most exciting fight, might not win fight of the night, but he's going to win. And I think he's going to win by unanimous decision. He's going to go 5 rounds, and Jack Della Maddalena may look like he has a bit of a chance in the first 2 rounds, maybe, but then I think Bilal Muhammad is going to wear on him, and he's just going to pretty much dominate him, just holding him down. And you can see him holding him down and having him anywhere, controlling him anywhere he wants on the ground, besides actually getting a submission or finishing him with ground and pound. But I mean, that's how Bilal Muhammad wins. I mean, he's eating eating a lot of W's, so it's worked for him. But anyways, that's UFC 315. UFC 315, Muhammad versus Della Maddalena, and that's upcoming May 10th, this Saturday coming up, and that's their standard 10 Eastern, 9 Central time, and first card or first at least first pay-per-view card in Canada in 10 years, which is just wild to me. Their fans should be ravenous, and there's a little bit of French and Canadian uh, uh, pe people on this flavor on this card with a couple fighters either being from Canada or speaking French. So the fans should be ravenous for them, but also just hungry for some premium mixed martial arts that they haven't had in 10 years. But anyways, I think this card is good. You know, it's easily if you just took like one of these championship fights off this card, or you just took Valentina Shevchenko off of this card, you could just be looking at this as kind of like a fight night, not much better than some of these last couple fight nights that we've had. But I think Valentina Shevchenko's name and notoriety saves this card a little bit, and then that there's two title contender fights. But you know, some crazy outcomes or crazy finishes or unexpected victories could change all of that and turn this into a great night of fighting. And regardless of that, I still, as a UFC mixed martial arts fan, I think it's still going to be exciting fights. And if you watch some of the preliminary cards, just going into those fights, knowing that you're not overly familiar with those fights, those fights can surprise you sometimes, and you get some of the best fights on the prelims. So be optimistic going into this card. You know, some great crazy outcomes and maybe some uh, titles moving around in some divisions. Maybe could end up making this card more exciting than it was. But it'll have some work to do to probably beat out the what was has been the best pay-per-view card this year in UFC 314. So it's got a bit of a hill to climb. But anyways, I think that's about all I have for you. So can I get a check, please?